Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, Episode 62.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 62 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's sponsor is the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, so please head over to outoforderjameskalita.com and consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. We have special bonuses for listeners that support the show. Members making a monthly contribution get access to our Facebook group for members only and a special thank you message on the show. Today's guest is Kimberly Morin. Kimberly is the president of Women's Defense League of New Hampshire. And now, here's Kimberly.
Kimberly Morin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Kimberly, you're the president of the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire. Would you tell us a little about that organization?
Well, we are an organization that not only teaches women how to safely and accurately shoot. We also fight for legislation, good Second Amendment legislation at the State House, and fight against bad legislation at the State House. We're actually we are the only organization that actually provides training and does legislation in New Hampshire as far as 2A organizations go.
Wow, okay. So how did the organization come about?
It was about 4 years ago, actually July 2014. We just had a birthday. We decided that we wanted to become a local women's organization, specifically to New Hampshire, so we could concentrate on, New Hampshire legislation and also help women in New Hampshire, although we also help, train women in Mass, Vermont, and Maine because they're so close. How to shoot firearms. We also teach Refuse to be a Victim classes. We just started an Intro to Rifle class. So we have a slew of different types of classes that we actually teach. And we decided to do that at a local level. So many organizations are national. We want it to be local.
Great. And so New Hampshire has a really interesting, I guess, political structure. I think you guys have 400 representatives in your state house. Is that right?
Yes.
Has that been helpful in protecting and promoting the laws?
Well, it's sometimes it's kind of obnoxious, to be honest. We have a lot of really good reps, and then of course on the other side we have a lot of really bad anti-Second Amendment reps. We were able to be on the forefront of passing constitutional carry, so I guess you could say it's a good thing. We actually passed it not twice, but 3 times, and finally we had a governor who would sign it because the previous governor would not.
Oh, wow. And so did he actually veto it, or it expired on his desk, or?
No, he actually had a signing. We had a celebratory signing in his office when he signed constitutional carry. The woman before him, she just vetoed it outright.
Gotcha. Okay. So maybe we could talk about that. What was that process like for you guys? I know a lot of states are struggling to even get laws like that or bills like that introduced, but you guys managed to pass it 3 times. How did you do that?
You have to have the right makeup in the legislature. You really have to have, I think, good reasoning. In New Hampshire, we had a law in place that was state-sanctioned discrimination. So basically, you're free to buy a firearm, with the usual background checks, etc. But you had to get permission from your police chief or maybe your alderman, depending on how small your town was, in order to carry concealed. We still have, but we used to require pistol revolver licenses. We no longer do that. And what happened is we did a lot of research. Our legislative director, Susan Olson, is amazing. She discovered that when the law was passed originally, it was done so for racist reasons. The KKK was involved. They were trying to make it so immigrants couldn't carry firearms. They were trying to make it so union workers wouldn't be able to carry firearms. It was basically their discretion of who could carry firearms concealed, and that to me, and to obviously everybody else who voted for it, which was a majority, that was unacceptable. And it was still happening. Our Department of Safety had even admitted that, yes, sometimes people are discriminated against. Well, that's unacceptable. Sorry. So that was in our case. I don't know how everybody else's laws are set up in their states, but that helped us. It also helped having women on the front line, honestly, because how are you going to tell a woman, nope, we're not going to stop discriminating against women just because you want to protect yourself using a firearm? So it actually worked out well for us in that case. And honestly, I would suggest any state, and I'm not saying this to be sexist or misandrous or anything, but so many in the gun control crowd look at men and say, oh, you don't need a firearm. You don't need, you know how it goes. You don't need a firearm. You're just trying to make up for something else. But what can they say to women when a firearm actually is an equalizer for women who want to protect themselves and their families? So it helps a lot.
Thank you. And so the other side of your organization is teaching women about self-defense and shooting. How do you find them? How do you bring people?
Well, we have a website, www.wdlnh.org. We're very active on Facebook, word of mouth. We go to events to give, present information about our organization. We will set up a basic pistol class, and it will get filled up within a couple of days of announcing it. And we usually have 24 women. So a lot of women want to learn, and a lot of women want to learn from other women. Sometimes, for other reasons, we've had women who have been victims of domestic abuse, who have been victims of violent crimes, and they just feel more comfortable with a woman teaching them than a man. So it's been very helpful to a lot of women who previously would not have gotten any kind of training. And in fact, we've had some women come to us whose husbands were avid shooters, but they refused to have their husbands teach them. So it's been kind of funny, I mean, I can understand the husband-wife thing, but so some of the women that we get are that mindset as well.
Wow, that's really great. And so, other than basic pistol, are there other classes that you teach as well?
We do. We have Refuse to be a Victim classes. We just started Introduction to Rifle. We have all of our instructors who teach in these classes are certified NRA certified instructors. We have all NRA certified range safety officers. Myself and a few others are chief range safety officers, so we could teach our own range safety officers. So we teach Introduction to Rifle. We will bring in more advanced teachers and instructors, and they will teach defensive shooting from the holster. They will teach other kinds of shooting, active type of shooter situation type shooting. So we have, we're constantly trying to provide different training based on different levels. We also, once a month, typically we have what we call our Shoot with the Girls. So we have a class, but we'll also usually have a Shoot with the Girls so that women who are members, they can come and practice and train. And we always have instructors on the range so that if they need help, we can be there to help them. And we can show them maybe what they might be doing wrong or maybe change something a little bit. We also have different kind of things. We have a gun cleaning class. We have a law day class, which the fabulous Evan Knappen, who I'm sure you're familiar with, teaches for us, and we love him. He's fantastic. And he teaches specifically to New Hampshire. So it's really, we provide as much training and information as we physically can, given the number of days in the year.
And was there, before you started this organization, was there an event or something that happened that inspired you to go down this path?
No, actually, some of us had been part of a different organization that no longer exists, but it was a national organization, and that's where we sort of said, you know what, we would really like to be local, because then we can focus and concentrate on everything local as opposed to having to deal with all the national level issues. So it really, some of the founders, and I'm one of the founding members, we were involved, but we wanted to be more on the local level. So we're specific to New Hampshire, even though, like I said, we have women that come from local states, nearing states. We're specific to New Hampshire, so we understand completely the laws, the mindset of the people, the women that come to see us when they come for training.
And so, do you have any specific advice for women that are, maybe they're completely unfamiliar with guns and they're just kind of coming to the idea of owning one for self-defense? Anything you would say to them?
Get training. That's the first thing I would suggest to anyone, male or female. Take training. Even though I've been doing this now for several years, I still am always getting advanced training, always constantly getting advanced training for my own self, for the students that I instruct, getting more levels of training for them. You're always going to want to train. Once you learn the basics, then you just want to increase on that skill. And one of the other classes we have are skill builder classes, using certain kinds of targets, and it's just increasing and building on the skills that you learn from day one. And as far as women go, if you want to find a women-only organization, look for that, because sometimes it can be a little bit different of a atmosphere when it's all women. And some women really want that, and some women really need that in order for them to be comfortable. So, definitely do research, get training. The first step, I think, would be to take a training class, because they provide the firearms, and they should only be providing you with .22 caliber. So you can try that out and see how you like that, and then move from there, and maybe find organizations or your local range. Maybe they have special nights just for women, or even just groups that go and that can help you more. Absolutely.
So a lot of times the anti-gun community will say things like, women shouldn't have guns because it's likely to be taken away from them or used against them. Do you have any answers for maybe people who have been hearing that for a long time?
Yeah, that's not true. There are an estimated, and this is just an estimated because not all of these cases are reported, there are an estimated up to, and it could be 100,000 to up to over 2 million uses of a firearm in self-defense every year. There's been different studies that have been conducted on this, so there's research out there, but that just shows that people are using firearms in self-defense. Sometimes it might only be a matter of showing an attacker that you have a firearm. That's typically what happens, is they turn around and leave. But I'll tell you, I have listened to cases, 911 calls, horrific 911 calls, where women call 911, and I did this for research. I listened to 911 calls where women didn't have a firearm, and I listened to 911 calls where women did have a firearm. In one case, the person knew her attacker. Another case, it was completely random. Another case, it was a domestic abuser, even though she had a restraining order, both in a couple different cases. The women who had firearms, and they were on 911, mind you. Just dispatchers do a great job, but the police can only get there as fast as they can. The women who had firearms survived, which says a lot to me, and it should to other women. But that's why I said, and my next statement was, get training. That's why it's good to get training. So you aren't afraid to use your firearm, so you understand the mindset, so you aren't afraid to defend yourself. Because as you and I both know, seconds matter when help is minutes away. And like I said, the cops do a great job. They call 911 emergency, they get there as soon as they can, but that might be too late. So that's one of the reasons I carry a firearm. I'm my own first responder.
Was there anything else that you picked up listening to the 911 tapes? Any other observations?
Just that these women were calling for help, right? Calling, and the calls seemed very long, but they probably weren't that long. But they were calling for help, and they were desperate, and they didn't want to have to use a firearm. And they even said, "I have a firearm." They told the dispatcher, but and they went to hide. Even they went to move and get away from the situation as much as they could. It didn't matter because their attacker found them. But because they had that firearm, they were survivors. Because the attacker got to them before the police could get to the attacker. So and I'm sorry if you're hearing that in the background. We're getting a major thunderstorm here.
Oh, yeah, here too. So, okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So I always ask my guests if there are any books they recommend that every gun owner should read, or
Masad Ayub wrote a really good book, and now I can't remember the name of it because I'm so bad right now. Masad Ayub's books are really good. Neil Knox wrote a really good book about his dad. Chris Knox. I'm screwing that up. He wrote it about Neil Knox. I think probably reading books about the Second Amendment and laws as well, so that you can understand where it came from, how it started, and where the gun control started to happen and why that became popular. Those are always important too.
Okay, great. And for the show notes page, I'm going to include links to your website and the Facebook page. Any other links I should throw up there?
It's WDLNH.org. It's our WDLNH Women's Defense League on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, although we're not, because it's a bigger venue, and we're local, we stay more on Facebook for social media. We also have a YouTube channel where we have posted some videos from our events, because we also hold a rally every year, annual Second Amendment rally in New Hampshire. And so there's speeches and things like that.
How is organizing the rallies been for you guys? We kind of struggle with them here in New Jersey, but how have they been for you?
Oh, it's been great. We were the first women's organization to ever hold one. I don't think any other organizations ever held one before. We held it right on the State House grounds, and it grows every year. So even you would think it wouldn't be as big after constitutional carry passed, but it was bigger. And we didn't even advertise last time. So it's good. The Second Amendment community in New Hampshire is pretty strong. There's a lot of us. And we have support and partnership with so many different people and other orgs as well, that it goes great. We've had some really good showings. We've had media. The year we passed constitutional carry, the media was all there. And you know how the media is. They're never there because it's pro-Second Amendment.
Right.
But so we've had them there. So it's New Hampshire's a lot smaller, too, than where you are, right? So that probably makes a difference, too, where none of us are really so far that we can't get to the State House for a few hours.
Well, Kimberly, I thank you so much for being on the show. Any parting words for our listeners?
Yes, thank you for having me, first of all. And parting words, pay attention to what's going on, because there's a huge push by Michael Bloomberg to push for local state legislatures to be taken over by anti-gun representatives. We're seeing a ton of it here in New Hampshire, so he's going to be infusing a ton of money to try to take back state legislatures, especially because a lot of us have passed, over the past 10 years, constitutional carry. So be aware of that. Pay attention with your elections coming up because that's going on. I'm watching it. I'm going to try to do some more research and get info on it, but that's important, super important.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks again for tuning in to episode 62 of the Out of Order Gun Rights podcast. Show notes page for today is Out of Order James Kalita /62. And today's free ad will, of course, go to the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire. They're having a new shooter event on Saturday, September 9th from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Wilson Pistol Club. So we'll post a link to that on the show notes page, outoforderjameskalita.com /62, or you can go to wdlnh.org. Is Out of Order James Kalita? We'll see you next time.